Thank you, Peter, and all the previous speakers. There's probably not a lot left to be said today, and having the last talking head of the day. So you've done well. Bear with me. Look, my name is Tim Mayers. I'm Director of Strategic Economics with the Department of State Development, but now Department of Industry and Skills. Why am I up here? Well, part of what my team is trying to get its head around, and have been for a number of years, is what are the things that actually lead to South Australia being a prosperous economy? And that has been an interesting journey for me over the years, covered lots of territory, but one of the places we've ended up is actually talking about, I guess, well-being in the workplace, and how does that actually deliver a good result for businesses and therefore prosperity. So in the time that I've got with you, I want to convince you that you're on the right side of history, and that the job that you do in your organisations around an integrated approach is probably the most important job in your organisation. So bear with me. My key message to you today will be that supporting employee wellbeing simply makes good business sense. I'm going to take you through some high-level results from a bit of research that was done through ANU, the Copenhagen Business School, Macquarie University of New South Wales, which was supported by the Department of Education, Employment and Workplace Relations as it was then, and the Department of Industry. Both of them were federal agencies, and the Department of State Development. And that piece of work is about the High Performance Workplace Index, and Nadia mentioned it in her presentation. So I'm just going to go into a little bit of the high-level results of that. So you've seen that many frameworks today, so just bear with me. Here's another framework, right? But hopefully it'll be useful and make sense to you. The High-Performing Workplace Index was pulled together by these group of universities. It had 6 related elements. So if you're thinking integration of workplace health and safety sort of things, you've got to integrate that into your broader set of business objectives and domains. And the main domains here, I'll start with employee experience, because that's really where the wellbeing and safety elements sit in: innovation, customer experience, fairness, productivity and leadership. Those are broadly the sorts of things that you've got to have right and measure and monitor and manage in an organisation to be productive and competitive. The employee experience is the one that we really want to dig into today, but essentially together they support and underpin the notion of a high-performing workplace. The benefits of being a high-performing workplace. So this study that came out of these universities showed that high-performing workplaces are 12% more productive, earn about $40,000 a year more per each employee, 25% more innovative in creating and producing new products and services, are 23% better at retaining employees than their low-performing peers. So let me put a visual to you on that one. This is a bell curve, normal distribution. It's really what it's saying, that those on the left-hand side compared to those on the right have a performance differential. Obviously, a lot of organisations might sit in the middle, but there is compelling evidence that if you can get your organisation to be high performing, you will remain competitive and be productive and be profitable. So if we take those elements and the employee experience specifically, what I can show to you is that there's a strong correlation to productivity and therefore high performance were around wellbeing related indicators. What the study showed that a 1 unit improvement in employee wellbeing increases employee productivity by 0.6. So that's starting to be a pretty good return on investment if you invest in those sort of things. So if you've got good wellbeing in your organisation, you've got to increase your productivity. That is a really good takeaway for your organisations and your business leaders. Another study that was done by PwC back in 2014 for Beyond Blue and the National Mental Health Commission, again was demonstrating. This was around a report that was written by Alan Fells, who was the former head of the ACCC. So it comes with pretty high credentials. For every dollar invested in mental health activities in an organisation, you get a $2.30 return, and for smaller businesses, even bigger. So this is something well worth investing in. So your time here today, learning about how to do this and the importance of it, can contribute to delivering those dividends. However, leadership, and it's been touched on by a number of the speakers today, it's sort of almost the sort of underlying undercurrent, dare I say, the elephant in the room, is the key to unlocking improved wellbeing in the workplace. So there's been mention here today of compliance-driven versus, or being complemented with, I guess, a culture of care within organisation. Essentially, a culture of care is something that's driven by leaders throughout the organisation, both the notional leaders, but also the informal leaders in an organisation. This is demonstrated, and this is probably the busiest slide that I've got. So essentially what this is showing, that for every overall improvement in, I guess, perceived leadership within an organisation, you'll get an improvement in wellbeing, you'll get improvement of commitment by staff, and you'll get a reduction in turnover and tension. All of those are the elements that actually deliver higher productivity for a profitable or effective organisation. So on that question of leadership, how do we get there? It's probably what's going through your head. I mean, I've worked in organisations and I'm sort of thinking, I'll make one step forward and it's two steps back. You know, you get your leaders so far and then the leadership changes and you feel like you've gone back. I see a few heads nodding there. Sometimes it's actually one step forward and two steps back, right? And you just sort of think, how do we, can I systemize this? Well, what does it actually take? Well, there's hope. So there is an element of change in accountability. This is fascinating for me. This was about two years ago, 2016, 23rd of November, front page of The Australian. I mean, I just, when I saw the paper, I just almost fell off my chair. I couldn't believe that wellbeing would be top left-hand side of a national paper. Maybe it was a slow news day, but it's an indication that there is a change out there. There is a recognition that getting wellbeing right in organisations can actually deliver dividends, and what they're trying to do is tie accountability to the CEO and their pay. If they're driven by pay, let's hitch the wagon to it. So what Deloitte's chief executive was saying in the report that was covered by The Australian here was that having a sustainable, high-performing business is having employees that are performing at their very best. And when they unpack that, where the bonus measures would come about, how workers would be assessed, it's around the mind, the body, the purpose and the place. And we've heard all of those talked about today. Okay, is getting your mental state right, your physical state right, having a place where it walks the talks, the policies are in place and all the rest of it, and having clear purpose and vision around where an organisation's going and also its wellbeing elements. So that's good. But I don't think that's enough. I think we've got to change the narrative. We've got to change the narrative for the community more broadly. And it was really pleasing to see, and I've worked in state government and government for a long time, and usually the budgets are all cast around the notion of economic growth and all this sort of thing. And it was really heartening to see that New Zealand came out saying the Finance Minister promises to deliver New Zealand's first wellbeing budget. I mean, that is a change in the narrative big time, and I think it needs to be embraced. So wellbeing is a foundation for prosperity, and Jacinda Ardern, the New Zealand Prime Minister, essentially summed it up by saying, we want New Zealand to be the first place in the world where our budget is not presented simply under the umbrella of pure economic measures, and often inadequate ones at that, but one that demonstrates the overall wellbeing of our country and its people. So what's implied by that is that actually to be prosperous, to have economic growth, you've got to have the foundations in place, the elements of well-being. So you are on the right side of history by being here today. There is a shift. We've got to keep pushing that narrative. So thank you. Integrated work, health, safety and productivity is good for business.